And welcome everybody again to the 230th episode of the Minnesota Outdoor Skills and Stewardship Series. My name is Benji Cohn. I'm joined today by Matt Pendleton. He's going to talk about Indigenous crafts, and I look forward to hearing a little bit more about this, Matt. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Haumatakiapi. My Dakota name is Wakia Washday, what means good thunder. My English name is Matt Pendleton. I'm the Dakota Relations Liaison for the Minnesota DNR. I'm an enrolled member of Lower Sioux Indian community in Morton, Minnesota, or our traditional name is Chinchayapi, where it means where they mark the trees red. And we're going to talk about some of the things that I do as a Dakota man. Two videos we're going to show. And then I'll talk about them and have some questions after. So the first video is going to be on porcupine quill work. And Ben, will you start the video?
So it's getting the rawhide, cutting the rawhide out, getting the porcupine quills, cleaning them, washing them, dyeing them to the colors that you want them, and then wrapping it. So it's a good process. It takes a lot of time, patience, and then once you do get the quills, you got to sort them and get the right size that you want for the project. It is kind of relaxing to me when I have the time to sit down and to do it. When I was in high school is when I really was seeking out who I was as a Dakota through ceremonies. That's where I became more interested in who I was, where my people come from, what our name was, our traditional name, to learn more about the history of who we are. And then in my adulthood, just recently, 4 years ago, is when I started to seek out the arts. I always take it as it's an opportunity to do something that I'm not comfortable with. And then the more I live, the more I've grown to respect those teachings, and the more I try to teach those teachings. When elders shared with me stories, I share with the younger generation to my best ability. Quill working, or quill work, is a traditional art form that the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota were pre-contact. So it was something that we used to decorate our clothes, our pipe bags, medicine. It was our beads before trading came across. So it goes back a long time.
My great-grandmother, her name was Lucy Ironboy. She had a quillwork dress, and my father, he had quillwork on his dance outfit, a grass dance outfit. And so that was the initial inspiration, was to find out how that was done, but also to locate someone in my community or other communities that I was familiar with to find out if anyone still did that. And it was unfortunate at the time in the early 70s where I didn't locate very many people that knew about the art form itself.
Now it's becoming rare for quill work. It's old art. It was here before we had beadwork and the traders and that. On the old way, they had quill work.
In 1978, the Indian Freedom of Religion Act was passed. And prior to that, we were practicing our ways, but we were doing so more or less underground. And so people held on to traditions and customs and language arts and those types of things. They held on to them, but we had to do them secretively. It was a trauma issue because they were adults that had to live through the impact of the Indian Court of Offenses. And so a lot of things were kept pretty close within families and extended families, communities like that. It wasn't as open during the early 1900s and all the way up into the 50s and the 60s and 70s.
It's tough growing up in two worlds as an Indigenous person of North America. Not being able to be who we are, not being able to practice all of our way of life is passed down through generations of the oppression that was put on us. So the traditional art is helping me grow, heal, to do my part to pass this on. Our people always say 7 generations. So 7 generations prayed for me, so I'd be able to do this. So I'm trying to do my best for the 7 generations after me to be able to do this art form where it's so deeply in our DNA. So that's my motivation, is somebody suffered and passed the tradition on. So I'm trying to do my best to do that.
Sometimes, especially when we had the Removal Act originating after the 1862, it was through the Removal Act that we were separated, and a lot of the people from different bands came over here up and down the eastern part of South Dakota and on up into North Dakota, on up into Canada. So there was a lot of impact from being disenfranchised from our original homelands. I think the impact was a loss of our close kinship ties. We were impacted with that loss of not being able to go a short distance and visit a relative, for instance, not being able to acquire knowledge through ceremonial activity passed on through our elders to our younger generations of people.
I was working at the casino, and Dakota Wachohan organization in Morton offered apprenticeships with a master quiller, and at the time it was supposed to be Hope Two Hearts, and she asked me if I was interested in learning how to do quill work. Split second said yes. She said, well, I'm looking for 4 students. I'd really like you to be one of my students. So I just waited, and something happened with her, so they had to replace her with Dave Lewis from Siston, South Dakota. And I just kept checking on with Dakota Wachohan, did you guys select your students? Because Hope asked me, I told them. So I was throwing names out there to try to get in the program, and I was selected. So Dave did all of his own research. He went into museums and looked at the stuff that they had in their collection and taught himself, which took him 40 years to get to now, where he taught me in a 5-month period to the wrapping technique and the sew down technique. So very thankful for his research that he did and all the work he put into keeping quill work alive and passing it on. I can't thank him enough for doing that and being willing to pass it on to myself. The way I show my appreciation is teaching it, you know, what he has taught me, to pass it on, to keep it alive. You either have a choice to take the opportunity or let it go by. The opportunity, when it was presented to me, I said, why not? You know, why not try it? You know, maybe this will help me in some way. And with the past 4 years of doing quill work, it really helped me grow as a Dakota man, pursuing the traditional art form and helping me grow as an individual to know more about myself and where I come from.
My name is Georgina Drapo. My mother is Hope Two Hearts. She is a master quiller. It wasn't until I got older that I really sat down and took the time to learn it. There was just a lot of things going on in my life. I could take that and turn it into art. She wanted her children to learn the art so it wouldn't get lost. And I feel really good to have my mom in my life to have taught me the different things about quill work and what it means to us. And I can take that and pass it on to my children. Quill work and just the form of the medicine wheel does offer a lot of protection. It means a lot to our people. When I am wearing quill work, it kind of gives that remembrance of who I am and where I come from. A lot of times growing up, there's just ugly people in the world and they make it hard. But when I come back to quill work or beadwork or anything like that, it makes me feel better about being Native American.
A lot of our Indian people of different tribes, we've come and we hit this wall. And this wall that we're hitting is really tall and it's hard to get over it. And in that, you have suicides. In that, you have poverty. In that, you have drugs and alcohol. All these things that we're trying to overcome. And so the people here in our own tribe, the people got together and they said, what are we going to do? How are we going to save our children? So overwhelming. The adults, the elders, we all got together, put our minds together and said, what can we do to save our children, to help our children, to build our nation? And what they had come across was art, spirituality, our Indian ways, this pipe way that is all Wakam, that's holy. But if you can get those kids to go to sweat and to do beadwork, to do moccasins, to do earrings, to do quill work, all of that is going to help balance out all this negativity, these things that kids have. I truly believe that if they have Indian teachings in their life, they're going to have the tools. It's a beautiful way, but it's something to combat this other side that we have here, we're faced with. So all these different tools you're getting is to help the kids to better themselves and get interested in something. And if they finish something, oh my God, they have such pride. It's beautiful. So yeah, that's what we came up with, and that's what we presently be doing. And for now, it's helping our children. We're creating a healthy world. Dakota Wichoha, that's the Indian way of life. That's what we want for our nation, for our kids, for ourselves. And you can do that through quill work, because it's a spiritual being.
Seeing my niece working on quill work in my home is beautiful. It's something I didn't ever dream that I would be somewhat of a teacher to her of this art form. It makes me very proud that she took the opportunity and is doing really well and keeping it alive. When you have an opportunity, take it, and being willing to give anything a shot, because there's always a plan for us. And it all comes together of who we are as Dakotas. It's the language, the arts, the ceremonies. It all helps ourselves so we can help our people.
So the next video, preserving two cultures with Micronesian and Dakota canoes. Another video that postcards put out from the work that we did to reconnect our people with traditional Dakota canoes in the University of Minnesota. So if you want to start the next video.
We come from a people that have thousands of years of traveling through these kinds of crafts and the ability to sail long distance using knowledge about the environment, stars, waves, clouds. To find Micronesian canoes in the plains of Minnesota shouldn't shock us because we have voyaging and movement in our cultural DNA.
My name is Gabriel Elias, and I'm one of the leaders here in our Micronesian community that resides in this area. I live here in town, Milan, and we built a canoe.
So I teach here at the University of Minnesota American Indian Studies. I'm from Micronesia, from the island of Guam, and with lineage to some of the other islands. I started to get to know the folks from Milan. Brought my canoe. I have an outrigger canoe that I've had with me here. And they wanted a canoe of their own. And Michael and Gabriel from the community asked me to help them do that. I'm a historian, but I also look at the survival of seafaring traditions in Micronesia. So that work has got me working with men from Polowat Atoll. I've been doing work with them for about 30 years.
I'm originally from Polowat, one of the islands in Chuuk State, in the federal state of Micronesia, and I live in Saipan with my family. I'm a navigator. I was ordained a navigator 2 or 3 years ago. Back home, that's what we use. We use canoe. We navigate, like islands to get food, to go and fishing. So that's how, since like when I was small, I started like going with my father, with my uncles and cousins, and then I helped them carve canoe when I was like still a young boy.
I miss what I've been through back home. Like when I was young, I used to go swimming on the beach, play with friends, go fishing with my uncles. Life is really free and unique. Over here, it's totally different. It's a different environment, different life.
With the help of a couple of grants at the university, we put together the funds to bring Mario and an assistant, Laureano. We also wanted them to do work with folks in the Upper and Lower Sioux communities to build a Dakota dugout as well, what they call wata.
Dr. Diaz talked about a few things that he's working on and that he wanted to be respectful of whose land the Micronesians are on, and traditionally that's Dakota land. Our people use canoes to travel, to hunt, to go wild ricing, to do a lot of things, you know, and that was a part of who we are as Dakota. After you're going to shape it more, Mario?
Yeah, shape it more over here, make it a little bit smoother. And then...
So the plan was to have a group of Lower Sioux members, a group of Upper Sioux members, and the Micronesians to work with Mario and his assistant on these different canoes. So we have a little one that was made a couple Thanksgivings ago. The dugout that Mario is helping us with. He went to the Montevideo Museum and they have a few dugout canoes there. The one that we have, and then other research they did to look at it to make it close enough, you know? Yeah. Show the size of it, huh?
Wata gahupi. Chang, tree, wata, boat. Gahupi means they're like digging it out, they're taking out that inner membrane. Chang wata gahupi. That's how you would say dugout canoe or making a dugout canoe. I myself, I am Lakota. We're more horse people and bull riders. My children are Dakota, and it's just really important to know who you are and where you come from, and you know, embrace that.
Outrigger, you know, like there's big difference because dugout canoe is only one hull, but the outrigger canoe, there's, you know, outrigger on the other side of the canoe to make it balance. And another thing is outrigger canoe has sail.
A few years back, I started to ask myself who I am and what my culture's like. A young kid came home from school. He asked me, "Wait, what's our culture like?" I said, "Why?" His teachers asked him what his culture's like, and he doesn't know. And I kind of paused for a little bit and thinking to myself, wait, I don't even know my cultures as well. And I kind of think to myself, I'm Micronesian, and I need to know at least a little bit of the skills that they have, and this is one of the very, very important things that we do back home by carving canoes. This is basically what this project's all about. It's supposed to bring us together, like not only the Micronesian, but other communities.
The hope is to make a Viking ship one day. So it'd be the big Norwegian population in Milan, and then the Micronesians, and then the Dakotas to have the three communities canoe together to bring that connection, that healing, that sense of belonging to the three communities that are represented there. Although Dakotas aren't living there at the time, but it's our traditional homeland.
It's really pretty exciting to see a traditional Micronesian canoe here, and it's also very exciting to see a traditional Dakota wata here. This is an outward, tangible sign of people's perseverance. You know, their resolve to be who they are despite challenges and assaults. And it's really important that both the university and community people see these and begin to participate in the process, you know.
I'm glad, I'm part of this project to help out my fellow Micronesian here in Milan. We don't want to vanish, from the earth. We want to make it alive. For me, I want the culture to make it alive, to keep on going to the next generation. The name of the outrigger in our language, we call it wa. Wa means the vessel. The vessel that in your body, which is, carry the blood in your body. It's bringing things to the family, the whole island. So it's very, very important and sacred to us.
I'm really fascinated for the way these guys like Mario and his whole clan, they can sail afar from islands to islands, like 100 miles, and be able to navigate themselves through the big water. I think that this is going to be the first steps of learning how to carve a canoe and then, learn how to sail. Thought it's really nice to be able to know where you come from and what you do and what your culture is like.
Postcards is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Additional
Ben, did you want to share that message before I start?
Yes, thanks for reminding me. I gotta go find it though. I just wanted, Matt's next segment here is on brain tanning, which is a super interesting topic. But this day and age, we have a little bit of a safety message to talk about there too. So we do recommend as a DNR to, if you're handling any type of, brain matter or tissue from an animal that use protective gloves, personal PPE, to keep that as clean as you can. Wash your hands, disinfect tools and work surfaces before and after that. With CWD in Minnesota now, consider having an alternative plan. Matt's going to talk a little bit about using pig brain to tan deer hides instead of a deer brain. If you do get a deer in a CWD zone, we highly recommend that you freeze the brain and you get your deer tested before you move on with the brain tanning process and get that negative test result back. So just a quick little safety message there. And yeah, Matt, I'll let you take it away.
So the next art form that I'm going to talk about is brain tanning leather. What I've learned with the deer hides with the same Dakota Wachohan out of Morton did another class with Walter Labatt Jr. He goes by Super. He's from Upper Sioux. He calls it buckskin, Indian buckskin, he calls it. There'll be a link on a video on my teacher that Ben will share. But brain tanning the hide, each animal's brain is big enough to tan its hide. But like he said when I went through the class, so we get the hide, we have to flesh it. We have to get the fat and the meat off the hide. That will take anywhere from 1 to 4 hours to do, depending on the size of the hide and if you're just learning what tools you have. after we do it, then we stretch it on those frames that you can see the picture. Because when we stretch it, that inside layer of skin doesn't come off when it's wet, so it has to dry.
Matt, I don't think you shared your PowerPoint there, so you want to.
Oh, you can't see it? Sorry.
Nope, I'm not seeing that. But if you could reshare that, so.
You get to see me talking,
And,
huh?
and
Sorry
again,
about...
while Matt's pulling his PowerPoint back up, I am putting the links to the quillwork, the dugout canoe, and the brain tanning in the chat. So if you want to copy those down and save them in your browser, you can do that.
Can you see it now, Ben?
Yes, it looks good now. Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that. So you can see the picture, one of the other students and our teacher stretching the hide, and then we scrape off that next layer of skin that has to be dry, and then the hair. And that could take up to 8 hours, depending how he taught us. He was just like, you hear this, you feel this, you just gotta do that, and he'd just walk away and give us the tools, and don't go too deep, don't go, and it's just, the more you do it, the better you get at it. Once we scrape off all the skin and the hair, then we have to use the brain, like Ben was saying. We buy pig brain, and you blend it up with warm water or hot water, whatever your hands can handle. You wear gloves to protect yourself, and then you just work you blend it up, and it kind of looks like a strawberry milkshake, and you work it through the hide, and then after you work it all the way through the hide, then we soften it with gardener edgers, and then some wire, just breaking down the fiber to soften it, and that takes up to 8 hours too, working the brain and softening it. And then after we soften it and have the brain through, then we smoke it. And then smoking it, we usually do 2 hides at a time, so we fasten it with a stapler, and then attach a old pair of blue jeans as a skirt so it doesn't burn the hide with the smoke. And we smoke both sides of the deer hide, and it comes out like that horse mask on the top. It gets that brown color, and it helps waterproof the hide. So this is something that our people have been doing for thousands of years to make our clothes. Now we make horse regalia, and you can see a pair of moccasins of the hide that I made in that class with Super. He's also a beater and a drum maker, so he taught us how to make moccasins as part of the class after we made the hide. So we turned the hide we made into a pair of moccasins. So, and on mine you can see I quilled a dugout canoe on it, because working with canoes and then making the hide. Let's see. So that's the end of that. I'm going to stop this PowerPoint and so I can see you. And then you can see my face, and I'll talk some more.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much for sharing the history and meaning of some of this stuff. It's really quite interesting. So, get a few questions coming in. Again, if people have questions, please put them in the Q&A, the Slido Q&A function there, and I will go through and read those, and Matt can answer them. You want to dive right into the Q&A, Matt? We get a few questions in there.
Yeah, I'll answer those, and then if there's no questions, then I'll talk some more.
Diane was asking about what do you soak the quills in, and how long to make them more pliable?
Water. So the process of quilling, I buy them from a taxidermy in Cosmos by a big paper grocery bag is about a pound of quills, and then I have chicken wire on a frame, and because it still has some of the hair and skin of the porcupine, so then it catches most of the hair and then that skin. Then I wash them with Dawn dish soap, and a little bit of bleach with hot water, and that gets that oil from the porcupine off. And then I dye them with RIT dye because I don't have time to go harvest all the natural dyes, and it's easier to go get RIT dye and dye the colors that I need. So then after I dye them, I lay them out to dry, and then when I do a project, then I take and I sort because you need a certain thickness of the quill. So for depending on what kind of style of quill work you're doing, so like the wrapping one uses a certain style. The sew down, you can use the thicker ones, and then the really small ones, they plate it. They do it on a loom, so we can use all the quills. But when we're doing it, how I was taught is we soak it in water a few minutes, no longer than 10, and then we stick them in the paper towels and cut both sides of the quill off, because then they can flatten and lay flat on the piece of rawhide that we're making. So I think I answered that.
Great. Somebody was just looking for the Q&A section. Again, you can find that in the bottom right-hand corner, those three little ellipses down there. If you click on that, and it's called Slido Q&A. If you open that up, you should be able to find that. One more question though. Where would a person buy pig brains from in the tanning process? And what is the risk of processing a deer hide with CWD? So I don't know if you want to handle the pig brain part.
Okay. You could go to butcher shops. The local grocery store in Redwood Falls, I just asked the butcher, and I have to buy I don't think it's like 16 or 18 that comes in a case, 1 pound pig brains, but they'll order it for me. But most butcher shops you can get them from them, or if the grocery store has a butcher, you could ask them if they can order some for you.
Great. And then the CWD part, of course, there's always a risk if you do have a CWD positive deer. That's why we put that little safety message. I put that in the chat also. There just to use appropriate PPE and make sure you're cleaning up well afterwards. I highly recommend getting your deer tested for CWD. Most of the CWD infections comes from the brain and the spinal fluid type bone marrow from a deer. So that's why the carcass restriction movements are in place in those zones. So that's why we can't move that stuff. It's not necessarily on the hide. The hide is pretty safe. The meats could be safe, but there's research going on that too. So Marvin said, talking about quill work again, very nice work. He was wondering, do both men and women do this, or did one sex do more of this?
So the books that were wrote about us we didn't have gender roles, and they tried to say that about us. I always tell who won the war tells the story, but we did a lot of things that aren't typical as males or females. So it was it varied from each community, each family. My teacher is a male, and he taught himself, like in the video said, he saw a dress of his grandmother's and his father's stuff. So he wanted to learn more about it to keep it alive. So that was his, I guess his goal is to learn how to do it and keep it for our people, because we've been doing quill work for thousands of years. So I learned in 2014 from him, and then took 3 other classes as a student teacher with him. And I started teaching classes, and over the last 11 years, I've taught over 1,000 students. Growing up, there was only a few people I knew that do quill work. Now I've taught over 1,000 people how to do it just from my teacher. And there was another student teacher with us who teaches classes too. So she's a lady from here in Lower Sioux. So yeah, both male and female do quill work.
Great. Janet had a question about the birch bark boxes. She was wondering if birch bark boxes were made mainly for the tourist trade. She had some relatives that acquired one in the early 20s up near Lake of the Woods.
So we use birch bark for a lot of things. The boxes are kind of modern, but we would make things to store things in birch bark. We'd also make things out of parfleche, the skin of the animals, to store things, keep things. Canoes are made out of birch bark. Before contact, we'd make pots and to cook in birch bark. So birch bark was highly used with Dakota and Ojibwe people, Anishinaabes that now live in Minnesota. So
Great. Louise is wondering, an interesting question, how are quills harvested from porcupines, and is it a sustainable practice?
So I just seen a video of a grandma and her grandkids, uh, seeing a porcupine go. So she had them grab blankets and throw the blankets over the porcupine, and then the quills get stuck in the blanket. So my brother went hunting in Montana and got a roadkill porcupine for me one time. And then I buy them from a taxidermy, so I don't know how they get them or where they get them from. But yeah, there's people that go out and just use the blankets on the porcupines that they see on the road or by the woods. So
I was just going to say that I had a Inuit friend in Alaska that every time we drive, or my sister would drive from Fairbanks or the park down to Anchorage, if we see any dead porcupines, make sure you bring some quills back. That was kind of the general rule. So
yeah.
Jane was wondering, oh, that was another cool one. Where do you acquire the quills? Taxidermy. Mary, what type of wood was used to carve canoes? The ones that you showed in there.
The ones that we showed as cottonwood. The picture that I showed on my PowerPoint was a white pine. The first one we did was a basswood because it was a soft wood, but it was hard to find a big enough basswood. So typically we would stand and push like they do when they wild rice. You would stand in it and you have a push pull to go with it. The one we made with the university was big enough where I could sit down in. So pretty big cottonwood tree. But typically we would use whatever and we would burn them out traditionally, how to get hollowed out. we started making canoes here in Chinchaipi. We brought down a woodworker in 2016 is when we started to try to reconnect our people to the water through traditional watercrafts. So we were able to make, I don't know, probably 6 of them since then.
It's great. It's a good segue. We got 2 other questions in here asking about where they'd be able to. Pat was wondering where you'd be able to watch a live demonstration doing a dugout canoe, and Laura's asking if there's any classes offered for that, doing a dugout canoe, and if it's open to the public.
So Wakan Tipi in St. Paul, they're got that area right below the mounds, and for their grand opening, I believe they're going to gift a dugout canoe to the 4 Dakota communities. So last year they had a class at the American Indian Center in Minneapolis, where they invited community to come and help build a canoe, a dugout canoe, or work on it. Owamini Omichia, St. Anthony Falls, they are a Native organization, nonprofit that is restoring the area by St. Anthony Falls. And I know that they want to have some classes, but there's nothing in place right now. So I was the artist in residence for the Minnesota Historical Society, and with that I built the dugout, and there's one in the collections that I made with the community here in Lower Sioux. We also made one for the hospital in Redwood Falls. It's on display right in their lobby by their registration. In our Interpretive History Center here in Lower Sioux, there's the first one that was made out of basswood. It's pretty small, but it's on display in the museum part. But there's no classes in Minnesota that I know of, the dugout canoe. But hopefully soon there'll be some in the metro area.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out for that. That would be an interesting class to take. Jamie wrote in asking in Minnesota if it's okay to take porcupine roadkill. Minnesota is one of those states where you can pick up roadkill if it, porcupine is a unprotected species, so you don't need a special permit for that. If it is something that is a protected species like deer, you do have to call the sheriff dispatch line is probably the easiest, or the local conservation officer to get I think it's called a possession permit for that. So just a little more information on that. Sabrina was asking, are there art exhibits with competitions for the best artist in the tribes?
There's a big one down in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm not sure the time on it, but there's a whole bunch of different categories that they have, and even age divisions. In the state, there's a few museums in Minneapolis and St. Paul that often have Native artists showcasing their work. There's one in St. Paul that is going this month that Marlena Miles is curating, and I don't have the trying to find where it's at. Give me one moment. Where is?
Well, Matt's seeing if he can find a link to that. There's a pretty vibrant community in the Twin Cities area, so keep your eyes out for that. Those museums and art displays and whatnot. Again, if anybody does have any questions, please put them in the Q&A there. I did get one more comment in the chat about CWD and cleaning stuff. It is, a highly easily transferable, hard to kill pyron. Those are, but I did put a link in there to a recommended cleaning process with really strong bleach or hydrogen peroxide to do that. So if you have any questions or concerns about that, that link is in the chat also.
Ben, I'll send it in Teams to you, the flyer for that show.
Okay.
And then if you could share it. It's called Native Voice of Power. Any other questions?
I'm not seeing any in there right now.
So like the video, the quillwork video, I was working at the casino and Elder asked me, and it really opened me up to learning who I was as a Dakota man. So since that opportunity, I've been seeking out more opportunities to learn traditional art crafts, how to harvest the medicines and foods, and being able to share that. Like I said in the video, 7 generations ago prayed for us to be here. So what are we doing? And my quillwork teacher said, what are we doing today to be a better ancestor? So trying to share those teachings with the community and be able to share that what I've been taught, lucky enough to learn. So I do workshops in the communities on quill work, and we haven't done a dugout workshop for a few years now. And we're looking to do some hide work either in the spring here. And then, I go to Prairie Island to do quill workshops and Shakopee and here in Lower Sioux. I've gone to Flandrau, South Dakota. I've been to a few schools to do work with the Indian Ed parent and families. Mounds View, Jordan, Bemidji State. So I go into different organizations too that are native organizations to teach their workers and their families. So
Great. I don't see any other questions in there. I'm going to try to share your brochure you sent over, and it won't let me share that as a PDF. So I'm going to put the link. I was able to find the link in there, so I'm going to put that in the chat.
Okay.
So link for that organization and where the application is. So hopefully that'll work for people. Looks like I got 2 more here. We'll be making a video of this available. Yes, all of our episodes, Moss episodes, are recorded, and they'll be available here probably by next Monday or Tuesday at mndnr.gov/discover on our website there. Bob was asking, are the canoes carved out of green wood, or do you dry the wood first?
So the pine, we dried it, and then the cottonwoods we did green, and they hold the water, so it's we went through a lot of because we use chainsaws to do the nose, so we used a lot of blades to do that, and then hand tools to dig it out. So a lot of manpower, a lot of the community helped do that. So
yeah, it's a big project. So Sabrina put it, I don't know if this is a request or just a comment, learning about natural medicine and harvesting would be awesome. So maybe that's a future Moss program we could work on sometime in the future.
Yeah.
I think with that, we are just about out of time. Matt, again, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and passion about Indigenous crafts. Really appreciate that. In a couple weeks, we're going to dive back into ice fishing. So Scott McIntoon is going to join us from the DNR and talk about walleye fishing during ice season here. So hope everybody has a safe and enjoyable couple weeks here. Get outside, bring a youth outside. It is Take a Kid Fishing Weekend this weekend, so it's a great opportunity to get outside with youth. Anybody can fish for free as long as you have a kid 15 or younger with you this weekend. So there's a lot of activities going on in state parks and over the long weekend. So get outside and enjoy it. It's always beautiful out there in Minnesota. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.